14 mountains above 8,000 meters, 189 days. Then the first winter ascent of K2. Nirmal Nims Purja built a career by making impossible things look routine. But on July 30th, 2026, he entered Broad Peak with 9 other climbers. Before leaving base camp, he wrote that he asked the mountain for safe passage up and back down. None of them returned. Broad Peak rises 8,047 meters on the Pakistan-China border. It is the 12th highest mountain on Earth, only about 800 meters lower than Everest. Above 8,000 meters, air pressure is roughly 1/3 of sea level. Thought slows, muscles weaken. A small error can outgrow the body's ability to correct it. Yet the accident did not happen at the summit. It happened much lower, before the final summit push had even begun. The team followed Broad Peak's normal West Spur corridor. They moved from base camp to Camp 1, then Camp 2, and began climbing toward Camp 3. At about 9 in the morning, near 6,579 meters, their trackers entered the same narrow section of the West Ridge. There were 10 signals on the mountain, climbers and high-altitude professionals from several countries, led by Nims through his company, Elite Exped. Then the route failed above them. Snow, ice, and debris accelerated down the face. The reconstruction shows the reported sequence, not the unknown exact trigger. Communication stopped. GPS trackers recorded a sudden, rapid loss of altitude. Some appeared to travel hundreds of meters downhill. One moment, 10 people were climbing together. The next, every signal had been dragged away from the route. This was the first evidence that the team had been caught in something catastrophic. Then, one location changed again. After Nims's tracker showed the rapid descent, it appeared to move. For his family, rescuers, and everyone following the search, that created a terrible possibility. Could he still be alive beneath the snow? But a moving tracker does not prove that a person is moving. A device can be carried by settling snow, ice, or debris. The signal offered no answer. It only kept uncertainty alive. Search teams mobilized, but Broad Peak made every option dangerous. Helicopters lose lifting performance as air density falls. Strong wind, cloud, and poor visibility can make a close approach impossible. Drones scanned the route while military and civilian rescuers prepared below. Ground teams climbed into the same unstable terrain that had already taken the expedition. Every meter upward exposed another person to the mountain. This was not simply a rescue. It was a second group accepting risk for people they might never reach. Elite Exped later confirmed that all 10 members of the expedition had died. By August 2nd, 8 bodies had been located and 7 publicly identified. Teams were still searching for 2 people and working to bring others down. The distinction matters because recovery reporting was still changing. What was confirmed was devastating enough. 10 lives had been lost. What had triggered the avalanche had not been established, and this film will not invent an answer. To understand why the loss traveled far beyond mountaineering, we have to rewind. Nims was born in Nepal in 1983. His first professional identity was not celebrity adventurer, but soldier. He joined the Brigade of Gurkhas and later served in Britain's Special Boat Service. More than a decade in uniform trained him to make decisions under exhaustion, cold, and uncertainty. Then he walked away from that secure career to pursue an idea that sounded irrational: climb all 14 8,000ers in 7 months. He called it Project Possible. The climbing was only one part of the problem. 14 permits had to align with weather windows, oxygen, equipment, money, transport, and strong teams in Nepal, Pakistan, and Tibet. A delayed flight could destroy an acclimatization schedule. A closed border could end the project. A storm on one mountain could consume the window for another. Nims was attempting a record in mountaineering and a live logistics puzzle in which every piece could move. On April 23, 2019, he climbed Annapurna, then Dhaulagiri, Kangchenjunga, Everest, Lhotse, and Makalu. The project crossed to Pakistan for Nanga Parbat, Gasherbrum 1, Gasherbrum 2, K2, and Broad Peak. Then came Cho Oyu, Manaslu, and finally Shishapangma. 14 giants linked across borders and seasons. Each new summit reduced the time available for sleep, recovery, travel, and the next decision. On October 29th, the counter reached 14 out of 14. The previous benchmark had been measured in years. Nims finished in 189 days, 6 months and 6 days. The record itself was later broken, but the achievement changed the scale of the question. He had compressed years of danger, recovery, and border crossing into one season. His story became the documentary 14 Peaks, Nothing is Impossible. Yet the number 189 was not the only part of mountaineering he forced audiences to reconsider. For decades, global mountaineering stories often placed foreign climbers in the foreground, while Nepali climbers and Sherpas remained behind the frame. They fixed ropes, carried equipment, established camps, and rescued exhausted clients. They often accepted the greatest exposure without receiving equal recognition. Nims challenged that narrative publicly. He presented his Nepali teammates as what they were: elite athletes, decision-makers, and leaders. The summit photograph might show one celebrated face, but the route beneath it had been built by a team. That message reached its clearest expression on K2 in January 2021. The world's second highest mountain had never been climbed in winter. Temperatures fell below -50 degrees, and winds could reach hurricane force. 10 Nepali climbers from 3 groups combined their strength. Near the summit, they stopped about 10 meters below the top. No one would step ahead and claim the moment alone. They formed a line and crossed the final meters together. It was a summit and a correction to who mountaineering history allowed us to see. That leaves a disturbing question. How can someone with this much experience die on a mountain he had already climbed? Because experience reduces the risks a person can control. It improves judgment, movement, planning, and survival. It cannot remove objective hazards from the mountain. When a large avalanche releases above a climber, the useful escape window may be measured in seconds. At 6,500 meters, speed, strength, and judgment are already diminished. A slab avalanche can begin when a weak layer beneath the surface collapses. Wind silently loads more snow onto one part of a slope. A cohesive plate forms above fragile crystals. When the weak layer fails, a fracture can race across the slope and release the slab almost at once. Temperature, wind, and terrain all matter. But the precise trigger on Broad Peak has not been publicly established. Blaming one climber, one step, or one decision would turn uncertainty into fiction. Mountaineers repeat a hard truth. The summit is only halfway. The photograph is not the end. The climber must descend with less oxygen, less heat, slower reactions, and worsening weather. The Broad Peak team had not reached the summit, but the principle still explains high-altitude survival. Reaching a point on the mountain is not success. Returning home is success. No record, photograph, or summit can overrule that fact. Nims became the name in most headlines because he was internationally famous. But this was not only his tragedy. 9 other people were lost: climbers, guides, and high-altitude professionals with families and unfinished plans far beyond the mountain. Fame determines whose photograph fills a screen. It does not determine the value of a life. Broad Peak must be remembered as 10 people, 10 families, and one devastating loss. Not one celebrity surrounded by 9 background figures. Nims Purja's life cannot be reduced to how it ended. He showed that an impossible timeline can sometimes be an outdated assumption. He showed that every celebrated individual achievement rests on a team. And he demanded recognition for Nepali climbers whose work had too often been hidden behind other people's victories. 14 mountains, 189 days. The first winter ascent of K2. A soldier's career transformed into a global message about human possibility. Broad Peak leaves a second message. Human ambition may be extraordinary, but nature is never obligated to reward it. The final moments of these 10 people belong to them and their families, not to speculation or spectacle. What remains is the lives they lived, the courage they showed, and the people they inspired. The greatest stories are not always about reaching the summit. Sometimes they are about changing what humanity believes is possible.